people are powerful allies and change makers in the movement against gender-based violence.
In this series, we have honest conversations about our encounters with such violence,
sharing stories of what we have seen, faced, and learned as both survivors and observers.
This podcast is for young people, but for all people. This is I Am.
Okay, so recording has officially begun. Glad that we can all finally see each other and technical issues are out of the way. What a challenge. But yeah, okay, we can just start with a round of introductions. Our audience has been listening to us for about 6 or 7 episodes now. They've met us all individually while we were speaking to guests who were sharing their stories. So this one's going to be the 4 hosts of I Am, where we're going to have a conversation where we reflect on the episodes that we've done so far, the work we're doing right now for Play Talk Change, and what we hope for the future of this podcast. So I'm Ishani. I'm from the India team of Play Talk Change, and these are my co-hosts and partners. I think they'll introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Mehak Gupta, and I am a co-host for the I Am series from the India side.
Hi everyone, my name is Sharon Adom. I'm a co-host from Uganda for the I Am series.
Hi everyone, my name is Pauline Sharon. I'm a co-host of the I Am series from Uganda.
Okay, that's great. So there's 4 of us. We're all young people coming from 2 different countries. All 4 of us have been working with None in Three for quite some time now, actually. But we've all been doing very different kind of work. Do we want to do a quick round of sort of what are the things that all of us do, because they are different, and that's kind of the perspective that we all bring to the table here in the podcast as well. Sharon, should we start with you?
Okay, like I said, Sharon Adong is my name from Uganda. So my role on the Nan in Three project is administrative. I do administrative work. We have done a lot of research with the survivors of. First, hold on. Are you hearing back in the background the children talking?
A little bit,
Can you hear children in the background?
slightly.
There
It's
is
okay.
noise coming from the background. Let me first tell them to be quiet.
This is truly a candid episode.
They are playing. It's time. It's morning and it's Sunday. Every child is home and they're playing. So Sharon from Uganda here. I have done a lot of administrative work for the project, generally in Uganda here. So uh, we have done research both qualitative and quantitative. The quantitative, we did it in schools, and I was part of the research team. So I've also done the media work for the project, all the social media engagement, all social media content. I have a team that I lead in Uganda. So basically, that's my work in brief.
Why don't you pass it on to someone, Sharon?
Yes. So let me pass it to. Let's keep interchanging. So let me pass it to Mehek.
Thank you for that, Sharon. My journey with None in Three began in my second year of college, where I started off as a volunteer. I was in the media gathering team responsible for social media posts and content creation for social media, especially. And I was also learning how to use professional cameras and video making for any workshops that we had. That went on for like 2.5 years until in 2020, that is after I graduated. Pratna ma'am, who is our country director for India, she and Bhanu sir, they both offered me to be the country lead for the Play Talk Change conference that was going to happen in June 2021. This conference was, as they mentioned that time, was going to be led entirely by the young people, and they wanted me to take the reins from India and make it happen. So October 2020 on, it has been full on engagement where Ishani, myself, and our team have been involved with content creation for the conference. We have been involved with the design and the branding of the conference. We've been involved with engaging with all the podcasts that we're doing. We're doing 2 podcasts, the I Am series, and another one called Hamare Family Mein in India, which is also on YouTube and Spotify, and all the other short films, and identifying the speakers for our conference and the global. I was also responsible for globally communicating, writing emails. So there's a lot of learning for me here because it's the first time that at a global scale I have been involved in an entire event planning, and that like I said, it involves not just the content creation, but it involves communication skills, it involves budget management, it involves design, it involves so many other aspects. So it's been quite exciting in this last run. And I'm so glad that happened because that's how we got acquainted with the global team on such a personal level. I'm so happy to meet Sharon and Pauline and work with them so intimately for a podcast called I Am series that means so much to all of us. And on that note, I'd like to pass it on to Pauline.
Thank you, Mehak. Once again, my name is Pauline. On 9 in 3, I volunteer as a media specialist, and I've been working in 9 in 3 for 2 years now. And I'm also part of the planning committee of the conference. And I really can't wait for the conference because we've really done some good work planning. We've planned for it for some good time, and I can't wait for it. Pass it back to Ishani.
Okay, so I am Ishani. Like I said, I'm from the Indian team of Play Talk Change. I first began my journey with Nanintri about 3 years ago as part of actually my third year course while studying communication design. I joined in for a project that I was doing for which I wanted to work with a organization that was working with gender-based violence, and that's kind of how the association began. I then went on to becoming a research intern there for 6 months, and despite that internship ending, I've still maintained very close connect with the team, helping out with the social media strategy and the rebranding for Nanansi, and now becoming a part of the Play Talk Change team, which has been so fulfilling because I think for all of us, this has been a new experience, not something that we've done before. So there's been so many learnings involved, um, and a lot of co-creation. I think because there's young people from 4 countries coming together to do this. And part of that sort of direct co creation is this podcast where the Indian and the Ugandan team have really come together to make something happen. And I know that this is our first time for all 4 of us doing a podcast. So, how has that been like for us?
Okay. So the whole experience, when you brought the idea of we want to do a podcast, the whole thing was new. So the whole experience was a new experience, I must say, but it was very exciting interacting with these people. The whole experience of getting guests and then asking ourselves, how is a podcast going to be? Then we started watching people's podcasts, relating them to what we want. So the whole experience was exciting. Hosting people, some of us have gained more confidence in hosting people. We had never hosted people like one on one and they are on camera. It's normally us going to the field interviewing people. So the whole experience was exciting. I personally loved it. I would love to do it. Something I would love to do again and again and again.
When we conceptualized this idea for the I Am series, It was born with the fact that we're so quick in identifying the wrongs in our society, that we forget to look at positive change. We forget to look at the impact that people are already creating. We forget to celebrate and take inspiration and move forward for transformation. Because whilst we look at what's not working, there has to be equal effort in looking at and taking forward what is working. So we conceptualized I am in October 2020, and in the middle of a pandemic and a lot of things going on around the world and in our country, and we wanted to get uh, talking to guests who have had experiences of gender based violence but who have come out strong and who have something to add value to when they come on and speak on a public platform. So that was the entire intention of this series. And right from then, when it was born to now, there has been a whole jump of learnings, in terms of how we've interacted with people, what all we've learned um, as hosts, learning to dance with our guests in conversation when it's live, because we don't know what to say, we've not pre recorded, we don't have a script. We were going with the flow of what they are going to speak with respect to their story. So, being sensitive, being humorous, being engaging, being interactive are all ways of being that we took on as hosts. And there's a lot of more technical glitch sides of things where we had to figure out technicals while our guests were coming on virtually and not in person. So that's another story altogether. But that's, yeah.
Okay, maybe to add on Mehek before the rest of the team come on. Um, the whole experience of having someone on a platform, this is not an everyday thing. The I Am series is not an everyday thing. We have a few platforms that give people um, a place to express themselves. So it was a whole experience. We are giving people a platform for free. Some people charge to come on their podcasts, but we are giving people a free platform where they can share their experiences of gender based violence, where another person is out there listening to them. So this was a whole, how should I describe it? It's good, and it's something that should continue.
For sure, I think um, it's it's such an empowering thing in terms of what we set out to do, and also especially with the way the world is going right now, it's so important that we also do look at the positives and stories of positivity and resistance. And in that light, it's been just so inspiring actually to hear all of the stories that we're going to showcase on our podcast of people that have survived gender-based violence and resisted it and come out stronger on the other side despite of the circumstances. And I think for people like us who are working in the space of combating GBV, it's all the more fuel to the fire to do better, right? So that nobody has to go through this again. And for all of the young people and survivors out there, to sort of encourage them to, or if something is happening to you or somebody please do speak up or do something about it. You don't have to go through it, um, and you don't have to watch somebody else go through it either. You can do whatever is in your power to do.
Thank you for saying that, Ishani. And while we are trying to inspire guests and young people to speak up about their experiences as a matter of inspiration to the other people, um, when we started, it wasn't easy to get guests. It wasn't easy to identify people who are willing to share their story on a public platform. So, does any of you want to share how easy or difficult it has been to identify guests and invite them?
Maybe I can go first, talk about the India side of things. We actually, I think it hasn't been that easy for us to find people who have, wanting to come forward and share, and understandably so, of course. But at the same time, it's we know the fact that we're part of this research is we know that it's not because these stories don't exist. It's because there's so many other things attached to these stories coming out and to bring this narrative out. Like we've had a couple of people that have sort of we've had our conversations with, and we even did like the whole briefing to come onto the podcast, and then they had to drop out because they were not comfortable with it, or their families were not comfortable with these things coming out. So I think it's important for us to also acknowledge that, like anything else, it's this is not an experience that even if one person is going through it, it doesn't tend to stay in that silo, especially I think in the Indian culture. A lot of how women and girls and boys and men are able to resist gender based violence is dictated by how the people around them and how societies around them would then react to it. I think that's also something that's come up in our process of trying to find people to come onto the podcast and share their stories.
So I must say the whole process wasn't an easy one. If I am to comment about it, it wasn't an easy one. I remember, okay, the first respondent, it was easy. She was willing to open up and tell her story out there. But you need to explain to them the real purpose of, because some of them come and they're like, am I going to be helped? Is someone there to help me, maybe financially and all that? So the whole point of making the real objective of, of the I Am series clear to them was very important. Then for our second episode, um, we we have this respondent who was hesitant first to join the podcast because she has gone on platforms before and she was bullied. So as we put them on the platform on our I Am series, we need to also protect people against social media bullying. People bully them, people stigmatize them. So we need to make sure that these people are safe mentally also as we interview them. So it was a good, it is really a nice thing. The I Am episode is nice thing, but we have to find a way of protecting these people so that people don't bully them. We stand with them. If we've started standing with them from the beginning of telling them their stories, there is need for standing with them as they go through this, as the podcast makes it out there. So it's very important that we stay with them throughout the journey. We offer them the necessary support because at the end of the day, people are there. People are there bullying people. People are there to make you feel bad about yourself. People are there to make you feel bad about what you've gone through. But for us, we are here to give you a platform where you will feel good about yourself, and we believe that you can still make it out of what you've gone through.
Oh my God, I've been mute. I'm sorry.
Because both of you, Sharon and Pauline, have been talking for the past 2 minutes at the same time, except that we didn't realize that Pauline was talking because she was on mute. And then when we realized is when both of us sort of tried to stop. But in that process, we've interrupted both of your conversations, which is not great. Um, I really don't know why this is happening.
I don't even know what we should do. I don't know what's happening.
Pauline, take it away.
Okay. My experience, my experience of hosting a podcast, this was my first time, and it was a really exciting experience. Of course, it was a new experience. It was my first time doing this, and it was a learning experience for me, very knowledge filled. Like I learned a lot from this these podcasts. It was so engaging. And there is what excited me that I learned a lot from, that is Stella's story. It was it was a resilient story, resilience of teenage mothers. And in the reproductive health field, I'm particularly interested in resilience of teenage mothers. Like I always want to know how did they manage to get through that experience and all that kind of stuff. So hearing her story, really, I got to know how she coped. And this helps me because like I'm a social worker by profession. So when you see someone's story and how they were able to overcome, one time if you meet another person with a similar problem, you can be able to tell them that, yeah, someone faced an experience similar to that and they managed to go through it in this way or the other. Yeah, so it really added on my knowledge in that area of resilience of teenage mothers. Yeah, basically, I liked the general idea of the podcast. It was really nice because it's empowering for the person that we are interviewing. Like you cannot participate in a podcast like that and you actually remain the same. Because even myself, I didn't remain the same. It was really a nice experience. Thank you. Maybe the second question that I've not yet answered, the ease or difficulty that I had when recording the podcast. Um, some for some people, some of our respondents, it was really easy to get them to come on board and participate. They were actually very willing to share their stories because they wanted to help people with similar experiences. And they would just come, me, I'm ready, I'm willing, even if it's free of charge, I'm just coming. Like you find that they had the zeal to come and participate in the podcast. But then, of course, for some people, they were willing, but they wanted to be anonymous. Of course, that fear, am I going to be in the video? What if my friends see me? Some people, you find they didn't want to actually get the video part of it. And that's how you're able to find someone who has actually coped, who is resilient and who is not yet resilient. Because someone who will come up and be like, yes, I experienced it, but I don't care if everyone sees me. That is someone who is a little bit more resilient. So you find for the other person who is fearing to be seen on video, of course, now as a social worker, you go more into the dynamics of you talk to them and tell them, no, what you faced is actually this. It helps you to identify someone who still has a problem. Like it was more helpful to us in that way because we identified this girl still has problems with this. Yeah. So we managed to talk one of them into it and she actually accepted to be recorded in a video because we told her this is going to help you in this way. You could get more opportunities out of this. You're going to become stronger after this and you'll never fear to talk about your story because it's now going to be where online. And she managed to change her mind. And then also difficulty for myself, some topics of course were so sensitive, like some stories, like you've never heard that someone could actually face something like that. And then you're hearing them. Of course, you get emotional at some point, but of course, you're the host. You cannot break down when the person you're recording hasn't broken down. Yeah. So we face difficulty in that kind of way. And then generally, it was hard for us to find a male participant. I don't know whether the males don't face GBV or what, but we found difficulty getting the male participants to participate in this. Yeah, but basically, those were just a few.
People not coming out, people fearing to come out, people fearing to share their stories. You remember our third participant, that is Veronica. She was so willing. She had overcome. She was so ready to share her story, and she was like, every time you feel you want someone to share her story and inspire others, I am here. So you find that this person has really, um how do I describe it, this person is ready to inspire others. So the podcast was really a very good platform. Okay, is because it's still going on. So it's really a very, Pauline has brought up very good points. It's really a very good platform for them to come and express it.
I think to add on to that, especially what both of you said about being able to identify who has reached that stage of resilience and has processed the trauma that they've been through and who is still healing and still coping. I think that was such an interesting thing to see through all of the people that we spoke to, some of whom are now part of the podcast, some of whom we hope to have in the future. But it's especially, I think, in a couple of the episodes. Joshua's episode comes to mind from our end, particularly the the calmness with which he was talking about his experience. And this is a young man, which is we're so sort of thankful to be able that he was able to come forward and share his story, because that's a narrative that is missing in general, like you said. But if the way he was telling his story in the most calm and composed manner, you could tell that he has processed what he has been through, and he's coped with it, and he has healed, and he's come through to the other side more resilient. And that's, I think, just it's so beautiful and so inspiring to see.
Yeah, and I would also like to sort of add to Pauline's point of, it's sort of in our end as hosts, we were also, those sort of um, we had to in our way encourage the people and make them feel safe for coming on to speaking on this platform. So there is obviously a lot of power in sharing, which we did realize ourselves while hosting our guests, because at the back end, I know me and Ishani have literally sat down, broken every story, and understood what is the best way to kind of bring the story out to our public, to the viewers for these episodes. And in that way, there's also this sort of dance that we as hosts had to do, because we will have to reflect our way of being as a host depending on the story that we are hearing, and the story we are sort of conversing with. So there's a lot of learning there also, and a lot of trying to identify how do you sort of best phrase your question here, or how do you make sure that you're sensitive here, and how do you sort of still, like, in the more positive areas, how do you then enjoy with the person while they're talking. So all these little things have played out while we were doing these recordings.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point in terms of what we have learned as hosts, because first and foremost, I am is about the stories that we're telling of the individuals that we're having on each week. It's about who they are and how that relates to their experience with gender-based violence. So it's been a very mindful effort, I think, from our end to ensure that that story remains the crux of the episode, more than anything else. And so, like you said, we've done this dance of sort of figuring out, how do we respond to these things? Because while keeping a candid conversation, we're, like you said, trying to make them feel like this is a safe space to share, because it is. That is what we intend it to be. We're not here to judge. And in the capacity of each of the episodes, we're also actually not there to give our opinions. We are simply there to lend a listening ear to help bring that story out for other young people to be inspired by. And I think that's kind of something that, maybe we could explore in the future of the podcast, in terms of bringing more of our opinions around the issues of gender based violence, the different forms of it, all of our experiences with it, because unfortunately, as girls and women, we go through some form of it at some point. And yeah, maybe that's something we'll consider for the future. What do you guys think, Pauline and Sharon?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Okay. So I, th- I think it's a very good idea to continue with this. There are few platforms, like I said in the beginning, that give people a chance to air out their experiences and for free. Most people, like I said before, they use these people to extort uh, them. They their own organizations and all. But here we are giving a platform that people are sharing experiences, their experiences for free, and then we are also offering them at the end of the day. Remember, we got those service providers, so we are also referring them to a service provider for help, maybe to shelter where they can find safety and all that. So I think this is something that should continue. We shouldn't stop here. It shouldn't stop with a conference. Just it's something that should be carried forward. And then, like last time when we had the other meeting on, I think on Wednesday, we talked about interviewing perpetrators too. Maybe that's the reason as to why we don't have men on our platform is maybe people think men are only perpetrators of violence. We should invite men also. Maybe they are perpetrators. There are those men who have. Remember, in our research, we interviewed men who have been perpetrators of violence, but they are no longer violent. So we can have them on the experiences, how they overcame being a perpetrator, what happened, and all that.
Actually, Sharon, to add on what you've said, I think if we got those perpetrators and interviewed them, they could first maybe talk about how they have been perpetrators and that. Someone who is a perpetrator will listen to that story and first think like, yeah, maybe someone with the same kind of thinking will feel like, yeah, maybe this. But then when you start decampaigning the thing in the end, the other person might also be touched and be like, yeah, this person has actually changed and nothing has actually happened to them. So I think it can be it can create change. It can be changing point for some other perpetrators. It's actually a brilliant idea. We should pick it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually, I think, even in our prior conversations, it's definitely, I feel like, a place where we want the podcast to go eventually. Um, but I think one concern, like we talked about, is that we're still in the process of learning how to continue to do this, learning how to bring about stories of survivors in the best way possible without any compromises, so to speak. And at the same time, at least Mehak and I have felt this on the Indian side for sure, is that from the 4 episodes that we have from the Indian side for this season, we haven't yet been able to cover the diversity of gender-based violence in India, so to speak, because we know that, especially here, when you bring in the aspect of intersectionality and caste and class backgrounds, the kind of violence that women and girls face is different. It changes its forms, it changes its shapes, and that's definitely stories that we really want to bring out. And in conjunction to moving on to stories from perpetrators, maybe it might be good for us to get to a place where we've brought up enough of these stories of the survivors like we wanted to, and then we sort of transition slowly to the other perspective. Also, then from the audience perspective, we're sort of covering one side of things and then moving on to the other.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with the limited people we've interviewed thus far, there has been quite a range of stories, and like we are going to notice that we have just one male guest in the entire season. And we do hope to bring that balance between diversity of caste and class, between diversity of all kinds of gender, to sort of share their experiences on being on, as a person who's a survivor. So once we have, an understanding as hosts of these varied stories, it would be actually nice to step on the other side, see, interview perpetrators in the context of um, understand what was missing, if the fulfillment of that would actually cause them to stop, would actually cause them to reflect on their actions. Because as a society, as a community, there are a lot of things that are very complex, and identifying these things which are missing by coming from somebody like Sharon said, who's actually overcome these sort of who was a perpetrator and has been able to reflect on that aspect of it, would be a great learning curve for us as societies. And I think that is where the real change will happen. And I think to reach there is a journey, but we will get to both sides of the story, and as the time moves on. Yeah.
To add on to that, actually, I think it's also important to recognize, like Pauline mentioned earlier, which is that perpetrators have often been victims at earlier stages of their life, and that tends to be a part of why they end up acting the way they do. And I think that's an extremely important sort of indicator of the cycle of patriarchy that sort of goes on, because it's vicious and it feeds into itself, and it doesn't just feed in from one gender. Women also end up being carriers of this patriarchy that is leading to their own oppression. And it's a vicious cycle that somehow we need to figure out how to break. And I think that's a process that involves a lot of unlearning, which and keeping a kind of open mind, because also to listen to a perpetrator, um, to not be too quick to judge and say that and put them into this box of being you are a perpetrator, rather than recognizing that this person has done the work to recognize what their actions have been and to move past them.
Yeah, and I to add on to that, it's actually going to be a challenge, like for us to even understand. Here we took the stand of being just listeners, not having an opinion, not having a judgment. So we will, like, while we're trying to include everybody in society to understand both sides of the story for the betterment of everybody, so that nobody has to go through such violence, I think our role will be very important. And we will, as hosts, have a lot of learning and have a lot of development on our sides to do in terms of the way we converse, the way we are with while interacting with the different people that we do.
I also have another suggestion. Apart from interviewing perpetrators and survivors of different forms of GBV, we could also interview people who help them, who normally the shelter owners, people who there are also people who have platforms where people share their GBV stories and all that. So maybe someone helped someone overcome something. We could also interview such people and hear how do they help these people. That will be one way of attracting to, if we have someone who helps GBV survivors, that will be one way of us marketing our platform and driving more people to our platform. And then we could also interview people who have watched others go through. They've not gone through the GBV themselves, but they've watched others. They've seen GBV happen, but they couldn't do anything about it. I don't know what you think about that.
Pauline, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I agree with what she has said. Actually, I've been noting them down. I think if we do that, that's how we shall be able to maybe get male participants, because really we had narrowed our scope. That is why we were finding only female participants. But if we go that way, I think we can be able to find some male participants. Yeah.
Okay, so picking up where we left off from, we were speaking about
Okay.
a little bit about the future of the podcast, what we hope to do, how our experience has been so far. So, along those lines, what have we learned so far from our guests and their stories? Let's start with you, Pauline.
Thank you. I've learned a lot from these podcasts. First of all, I've learned that there is no problem that you cannot handle, because I used to think I have problems, but they're actually bigger ones. So now you like personally, I became strong. I said, no, if they went through this, I think I can also go through this little that I'm going through. And then also what I learned from them, something that was common in all of them, is the determination. Actually, I've got to learn that everything is all about determination. You can actually do anything, be anything, or overcome anything as long as you're determined. It's most times something that starts with the mind. You start by saying, no, me, I'm finished. I can't go through this. And if you're going through that kind of mentality, that is actually what is going to happen. Yeah. And one big thing I've learned from all of our respondents is moving on. You always have to just move on. Life never ends as long as you're still alive. You can overcome everything. That is basically what I've learned from our guests. Thank you.
I would like to add here that I think, yeah, I mean, listening to so many stories, I did realize that there were so many things in my life that I was taking for granted. The little things, because a lot of the people, at least one of the persons that I interviewed, wasn't able to come on as a guest. But hearing the story, it just made me feel like, you know, in not a very great way, but I do have certain sense of privileges that maybe so many women in my country don't, and that just makes me so much more grateful for what this life that I have, and also more acknowledging and more empathetic towards the other person. And um, yeah, and like in terms of so many ways that our guests have gotten over what they were facing, there's so much to learn from it. Like, in fact, from Sharanya sharing, our first guest in India, she shared that when she spoke out about when she was experiencing discomfort in a train journey, she just told one man ahead of her, and the whole train was there to support her, and the person she was feeling uncomfortable with was thrown out of the train. And that is, like, it gives me goosebumps when I say this, because you don't, like, when you're going through something in public spaces, you feel all alone. Like, I remember when I faced something like this, I was in my head, and like Pauline said, most of these things happen while you're just thinking in your head, and I was like, I'm so alone, like there's nobody to help me out. But just in that moment, catching that and like just asking for support, asking for help, knowing that not everybody is the same, that is very little thing, but such an important thing that came out. And that is a learning aspect. Like, each story has its own learning aspect to take from. Sharon, would you like to add something?
Yeah, of course, I'd love to add something. Since our stories, we almost most of our respondents were young people, and there was a lot to learn from these young people. First of all, young people don't have a lot of platforms where they can talk about their things. So, like Pauline said, she used to think she has problems, but there are people with bigger problems. They have big problems that no one is there to listen to. They assume you're young, you don't have problems, you're not working, you're not going through something. And yet, as young people, as you grow, if I if if I tell you the problems I had at 22, there was no one who was there to listen to them. If there was a platform like this to listen to me as I went through the different kinds, as or someone goes through the different kinds of violence, it could be emotional. A lot of people go through a lot of emotional violence, but they need someone to talk to. Normally, they need someone to talk to and listen to them. So there was a lot to learn from these young people. They told their stories, that there is need for such kind of platforms for us, for someone to listen to them or find help somewhere. And then us as hosts, we didn't have this experience of looking through the camera. It wasn't always easy to look through the camera. Yes, we also got the experience. There's a lot as we focus, look through the camera. Also, our interviewing on, because we said these are not interviews. This is an interaction, and then we also learn to interact with people, the probing and all that. So it was all learning for us, and there's a lot to learn as different.
Can I add something? um, in terms of that, like what Sharon said, as hosts, we got to learn while on camera having these conversations with people. So it was like it was challenging, especially for me first, because as soon as the camera switched on, I was like nervous. And how do I propel and move forward this conversation when I'm so nervous? But like it sort of comes with practice, I feel, and I think with each episode we record, we'll just get better because as um, being on the other side of actually prompting the person to speak, you kind of are responsible to open up the space for their comfort in terms of how they share their story. And I think um, a lot of the way they share and the way they like come through comes from you, and I think that has been is going to be carried forward as a learning experience for all of us. Saying that this is a very important discussion because going forward we will need to understand how best to put these stories out for our audience, because ultimately our context for I am has been to leave the other young people who are listening to it inspired, and we do not really know what space they'll be in when they're listening to these. So I think that responsibility also falls on us, and I think as we move forward we have to figure these things out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense in terms of, and that's I think just the work that we have to do. We are of course recording this episode before our series has had a chance to air. We're only 2 episodes out as of now, so it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the season goes over with our audience and everything that we get to learn from them and from the experience, and then apply it to the next one and the future of I am. But in the meanwhile, the immediate future of the podcast is what happens at the end of this season, which is also sort of what led to us creating this podcast, which is the Play Talk Change Conference, which is happening on 24th and 25th June. Mehak, you want to introduce what the conference is all about?
Yeah. So the Play Talk Change Conference is being hosted by the Nanintri Research Center by the young members of the participating countries, which is India, Uganda, Jamaica, and the UK. And the entire intention of this conference is to bring out the discussion of using pro-social games as an intervention to gender-based violence, along with design, art, and research. So these conversations, we'll be having keynote speeches, we are having a panel discussion, we are going to have some game displays, that the games that Nanin 3 itself has been developing to sensitize young children on gender-based violence will all be talked about and displayed during this conference. So it's an interesting gathering of researchers, of game developers, and of young change makers like all of us. So yeah, that's what Play Talk Change is all about. What are you guys looking forward in this conference?
I
Sharon,
know
what are you
Sharon
looking?
wants to say something.
Yeah, her face is like all lit up.
Ishani, um, maybe before I answer looking forward, as I go on, maybe it will answer it. I think this conference is one of a kind. There are a few conferences that are normally rotating around young people. So it's a few like us having Uganda, Jamaica, India, and UK all on one platform. Researchers from different countries on one platform where every country has been allowed to organize, pick their own keynote speakers, having young people take lead in everything. There are few all conferences normally come and they're targeting different people who have done their books, professors discussing issues here and there, and they touch different things. But here we are touching the cultural aspects, we are touching the academic aspects of life and all that. So what am I looking forward to this conference? Of course, there is entertainment. People are going to be educated about different things. We are going to meet. I am going to go to Jamaica. I'm going to go to India while I'm in Uganda. I mean, I can't wait. It's an exciting experience for me. The whole organization, and then the day comes, 24th and 25th comes, and we have the conference. So I believe it's going to be an exciting experience for me. Last time we were talking with Pauline, and Pauline was like, I think this thing is going to be big. And yes, it's going to be big.
Maybe I can go next. What I'm looking forward to in the conference, the conference is play, talk, change. But for me, I'm more interested in the change because that is the actually the expected end result of the conference. Because we're actually showcasing, we are showing people what we've been doing as None in Three. Now, like in Uganda, the game approach is actually almost unknown. We've tried to look for gamers to come and participate in the conference. We've failed to get them. So we expect that through that component of the play, like if we show our different games, like people will appreciate gaming. I can see that it is actually a good approach for change, which is actually a very good approach because you involve the people. It is it is not this change of you're going to read books so that this it's more engaging and interesting. Like you see a game, you're involved in it. Yeah. And then also knowledge. We have keynote speakers. We are going to learn a lot from them. I actually enjoy speeches most, even on parties. If I go for a party, that part of speeches, if they're disturbing me, I feel like, what are you doing? Even those things of like children next to you, I don't want them next to me when speeches begin. You can come next to me when maybe people are dancing or what, but you always have something you pick from someone. So from the keynote speakers, I expect to get a lot of knowledge from them. Considering that I'm already interested in the field, we shall see keynote speakers from India, we shall learn from them. The ones from Jamaica, we learn from them. The ones from Uganda, we shall also listen to them and learn from them, though we've had some of them speak, but of course they will have some new information for us. And then also in particular for the I Am series, I know it's going to create an impact on some other people. I also want to hear people's views about the I Am series that we've recorded. What do they think about it? Is it a nice thing? Is it a nice approach to use? Has it created an impact in them after them actually listening to it or viewing it? I think it would really be important because I'm hoping that we are going to actually maybe play them or upload them on the conference, or maybe refer people to them. And then the biggest part is the culture part. I really look forward to the culture skits. Yeah, I want to see India's Mehak and her grandfather. Yeah, I want to see those episodes from different countries. I look forward to that.
Yeah, I think like there's going to be gold in every session. It's a matter for every participant to just dig it, and there's going to be a lot of learning, a lot of fun in this conference, which I think we all are looking forward to. Ishani, you didn't say anything.
Yeah, just about to. I think one of the biggest things that I'm looking forward to is seeing all the different connections and the networking that's going to happen because, along with the fact that this conference has been organized by young people in at least 4 different countries, it's also going to involve attendees from at least those 4 different countries, if not more. So it's going to be so interesting for um, people young and old to be interacting from different cultures but also different professions because yeah, we're aiming to bring together research and game making and change making, um, and it's going to lead to a lot of different interesting conversations. I feel, I hope. Really looking forward to that. And Pauline mentioned also the culture sessions, which I think by the time this episode actually goes out, India's culture session will have also started, I believe. It's another podcast, more like a limited audio series, where we're hosting a grandparent and grandchild duo in each episode that are going to talk about their own experiences with gender bias and gender based violence. And we sort of look at the Indian family then and now. And it's called Hamari Family Way. So, yeah, that's Definitely looking forward to that, and I hope that our audience enjoys this as much as we have enjoyed putting all of this together. And in terms of also picking up from what Pauline said about understanding how our podcast I Am has been affecting our audience and what's the, whether we were able to make an impact and some change. If you're watching this on YouTube, we highly encourage that you leave a comment telling us anything that this podcast may have helped you realize or you've taken away from, any suggestions that you may have for us, because it's just going to help us get better at what we do. And if you're on any of the listening platforms, see if you can leave us a review there. Otherwise, we also have a super active Instagram as of now, which all of us have been working pretty hard on. Follow us there and you can leave a comment. Sharon has dropped off at a very, very ominous moment. Yeah, I think her computer has gone up. So I think that's our cue. That's our signal that we've accomplished what we wanted to accomplish for today.
Yeah. We're actually recording this from 3 countries. Ishani is in Malaysia, I'm in India, and Pauline and Sharon are in Uganda. So it's definitely been a journey for us.
It has, and it has definitely been quite the technological struggle today, especially. No idea why, but we made it through, so that's good.
Yeah. Ishani, your cue again to sort of close.
Yeah, my computer went off, but thank God.
Yeah, but I think that was a cue. Your computer was telling us that we have done what we needed to do for today, and this is a good time to close. It's been now Pauline has dropped off. Okay, this has been a journey. This has definitely been a journey today with the technological difficulties. But I'm glad we did this. It's been a very nice conversation, very fun. Also, so glad that all 4 of us are on board for continuing to do this beyond just the conference. I know it's something that we feel passionately about, and we hope that it's something that our audience is also looking forward to. On that note, see you. Have a good day.
Have a good day and look forward to season 2. And like Ishani said, leave us reviews. You can like our videos, subscribe to our channel for constant updates.
And register for the conference because we'll be there.
We'll see you there next.
Thank you for listening in today. If you or someone you know is facing such violence and needs help, please check in the episode description for resources.
This podcast is part of Play Talk Change, a virtual conference around serious gaming, research, and gender-based violence. Follow us on social media and check us on our website for other updates.
If you would like to come on the podcast and share your story, please email us at playtalkchange.ni3@gmail.com.
Don't forget to subscribe and register for the conference.